New Hampshire and from Kentucky and Florida. My dad likes to say, people respect what others inspect. And if you don't inspect, you're not going to get any respect. So it's important that we have oversight. It's important that we have a regulatory system. The market and the public sector should work in a balanced way, should complement each other. That has not happened. And as a result of the lack of regulation, as a result of deregulation, Graham Leach Bliley in 1999, I'd like to talk about that in a moment, we've got ourselves into quite a situation. Let me share with you what the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities issued recently. You all probably would not be surprised to know that between 2005 and 2006, the average income of the top 1% of households increased by $73,000. And after adjusting for inflation, while the average income of the bottom 90, that's us based on our pay here, increased by $20. I'm talking about a 20 spot. Bam. That's your pay increase between 2005 and 2006 if you are in the bottom 90% of the income distribution. Now, you might be thinking, gee, that's not good. But let me just tell you, what this means is that the share of the nation's income flowing to the top 1% has increased sharply. As a matter of fact, rising from 15.8% in 2002 to 20.3% in 2006. That means that people in the top 1% of our income distribution make a fifth of the money. That's not good. Now, you might be thinking, well, that kind of sucks there, but fact is that, it hasn't been this bad since. Mr. Yarmouth, when was the last time the top 1% were making this much of the money in America? It did happen before. Mr. Yarmouth, I want to ask you if you know. I know you have an idea because you were already talking
would have
about
been obviously in the robber baron era, the 1920s.
1920s. It starts with the great. As a matter of fact, Mr. Hodes, your mother was born and lived during this era. When was the last time the top 1% made 20% of the money in America?
1929.
The Great Depression. I'm telling you, the signs are not good. We need bold, decisive action which puts the public sector and the private sector in a partnership to look out for the American consumer. This is what we've got to do. Mr. Yarmouth, let me talk to you a little bit about some things that you inspired me to think about. When we had Chairman Frank out to Minnesota, we had a hearing on the foreclosure crisis. And one of the pieces of testimony that came out is that a lot of folks actually could not find rent at the amount that they could buy into a subprime mortgage. In other words, they could get into a 228 or a 327. That means you have a low rate for 2 or 3 years, then it jumps way up. The teaser rate was lower than the market rent they could find. And since nobody was checking income, they got into that. And then when the 2 or 3 years expired, they were in a mess. The mortgage jumped up. There was not enough equity in the house to refinance it, and they were foreclosed upon. Now, that speaks to another thing that we've done in this 110th Congress, and that is invested in a National Housing Trust Fund so that we could truly invest in affordable housing, which is part of the equation here. In America, we need an overhaul of our economic system. We need real progressivity in our tax code. We need real regulation in the financial housing markets. We need to have a real aggressive attempt to support affordable housing, and we need to make sure that people have livable wages to live on. We need a new vision for an economy which puts economic prosperity at the very center dot of what we do around here. So I'll yield back at this time. Thank you, Mr. Host.